So good evening, everyone. I can see the 196, 98, rather
Good
200
evening.
participants. Thank you so much. And can you please just mute yourself for a bit? So welcome all of you once again after a grand CA Day celebrations. We are back with once again one more our power pack sessions with the e-invoicing. And we are actually timely organizing these sessions as just asked by Jaya Lakshmiji. And how many of you are getting the Gulf news? We have rolled out that, the offer for that. So, the couple of days, why I'm asking is the couple of days, there was a article, the full-fledged article was on the e-invoicing. So, I mean, that is going to be very, very important as per we see as per the user and for the government. It's going to enhance the transparency, the operational efficiency is going to be there, and the VAT leakage is there for the government side. So that also is going to be prevent. So I think it's going to be a very exciting and very knowledgeful sessions for everyone. And yes, the online sessions, if we talk about there, the participants are increasing. As we were just before the sessions, me and Jay Bhai were talking, like, the participants in this sessions from the three locations. Right now, I'm from the India. So that's the beauty of the online sessions that I'm joining from here. And one of our speaker, Mr. Mark Alchem, he's joining from the Lebanon and rest of maybe some of you if you are traveling. So it's going to be an exciting sessions. And with that, I would like to thank the speaker, our learned speaker, Ishan Khaturiya, and of course, our the second speaker, Mark Alachem. And along with that, I would like to thank our committee member, Sanjay Bhai Gagrani, as well, to being the instrumental and the key person organizing these sessions. So thank you so much, Sanjay Bhai. Thank you so much, Ishan Bhai, and thank you, Mark. And with that, I will just would like to go back to our chairman to say again few words of the wisdom. Over to you, Jay Bhai.
Thank you, Amit Bhai. I'll not take much of your time because idea is uh, to hear the session. Only one knowledge, one thing which you all should know. If you are attending this session, you might be expecting CP hours from the chapter. Yes, we'll be doing it, but there's a CP guidelines. I was just discussing with the chairman of the CP committee in India. Anyone who attends more than 75% of the total time of the session will only be granted the CP hours. So in case you're told, if you are attending the session now, after 1 hour you drop off, it will not be 75%. So, and we have to share that entire Excel with them. So please do understand that we will be granting CP to you all. And there has been few questions in the past. We'll be granting you, but please ensure you are attending at least 75% of the entire session today. Then we will grant you. Otherwise, it is completely unstructured. You can see it offline and then can apply yourself. That is the only thing. Enjoy the session. E-invoicing is still at the nascent stage, but start thinking about it because it is coming, or let me say it is running towards you in speed. And instead of you banging on it, I want you to embrace it. And for embracing, we have to start earlier. That is the only idea. With this, thank you, Amit Bhai. Back to you.
Thank,
And
yeah,
go ahead.
thank you so much. And just few words I think Sanjay Bhai wants to say. So thank you so much, Jay Bhai, for mentioning that 75%. That's really, really important because I am also getting the queries for the CP hours constantly. So thank you for clarifying that. Over to you, Sanjay Bhai. You want to say something about the sessions quickly?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Chairman. I think he rightly pointed out the CPI was requirement and he kept it very short on the e-invoicing. So I will also keep it short. Only thing I want to say the member, this is the opportunity to where the automation will trigger. Not only it will impact the finance and tax compliance, it will have impact the supply chain, your sales team or beyond. So just listen to our both learned speakers, and I think I can see that what already the questions are coming in about the very pointed question about the high C seal and all. So I will leave it to our two speakers to make it happen in a very lively and interactive. So, but what we discussed initially, it would be like a speaker will complete a presentation and later on we'll take the question answers. Over to you, Amit.
Thank you so much, Sanjay Bhai. And before we start, just one quick humble request. After the session, please don't forget to give your feedback in the respective whatever ICI groups you are there. So, I mean, that is the things which we are starving and the other members will get the motivations. And maybe at why I'm making right now, because maybe at the end, it will be 10 p.m. in India. So maybe you will not see me at the end of the session. So that's why I'm just requesting you now. So please don't forget. And with that, just straight away to the speakers. Over to you, Ishan Bhai, and to Mark.
Great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you first, Jay, Amit, and Sanjay for this opportunity, right? And I think it's good to impart as much knowledge as we can. I think seeing the number of audience like that we have, it's more than now 300. I think it clearly shows the interest that everyone has with e-invoicing, right? So, and it will grow with time, and everyone in the region who is there will get impacted with e-invoicing. So before we get into that, just a quick introduction again about me and Mark. So I'm partner in PwC, again having more than 16 years of experience in tax and tax technology, worked across India and UAE. I've also had in-house tax experience where I implemented e-invoicing for Saudi and Egypt as an in-house tax advisor for one of the largest e-commerce company. So that has helped me a lot with both practical insights and also now helping a lot of clients with e-invoicing related queries and support with implementation. So I'm hoping that we are able to answer all your questions as we can. And as Jayalakshmi, you also mentioned, right, there are some questions that would be open, but I think it's better we all need to brainstorm it together and see how we arrive at the practical solutions for those as well. I also have with me Mark Alasham, who's manager in our team, and I'll let him introduce himself because I think he brings a lot of value to this e-invoicing given his past experience in the same country which is implementing the same model as UAE, which is France. So Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Ishan. Thank you, everyone, for organizing this call today. So I'm Mark Al-Hasham, manager in the indirect tax technology team at PwC Middle East, working with Ishan along other team members on e-invoicing implementation in the UAE. So I recently, 6 months ago, I joined PwC in the Middle East, coming from PwC France, where I've worked for the past 3 years on e-invoicing implementation. And as Ishan said, so France is also implementing the same e-invoicing model as the one being implemented here in the UAE. So from my side, I had the opportunity to work on this PayPal 5-corner model for the past 3 years, and I have the opportunity today to present this to you with Ishan. So happy to be here, and thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you, Mark. So I think we will dive into UAE invoicing. I know a lot of people will have questions on what UAE is bringing in, how it impacts your business. But before getting into UAE, what we wanted to also bring across with this group is what e-invoicing actually is. What are the global trends that are there in e-invoicing? What's happening when it comes to the Middle East region? Right? It's not only UAE that's implementing e-invoicing. And one of the questions that was there when we started was, what is the guarantee there will be no change? There will be changes, and because this is an evolving concept, right? And it's not only UAE, it's done across the globe. People are learning from experiences. Even countries that have implemented are learning and making changes on a regular basis. So you will have ever evolving changes that will be coming in e-invoicing, and that's the whole beauty of digitalization and technology which is there, right? So if we would have spoken 3 years back, the technological infrastructure, the AI that we are speaking about was completely different to what we are speaking now. And I think probably in the next month, if we do a physical session as well, which we will, once we have more details. So every month, I think it's rapidly advancing and there are more and more changes that are coming in. So yes, there will be changes, but again, we need to be with the pace. We need to make sure that we are adaptable, we are agile to make sure that we are learning and adopting and implementing those changes in whatever field that we are working, be it whether we are advising our clients or we are in-house tax advisor implementing for the company where we are working. So if we can move to the next slide, Mark. I think the first question is, what is invoicing, right? A lot of people that we speak to, they say we are already issuing automated invoices through PDFs. We are not manipulating or adjusting the invoices. So we are issuing an electronic invoice. What is the difference that it comes in when you're talking about e-invoicing? No. So the normal PDF copies, the system generated PDFs or anything that we generate through Excel is no longer an e-invoice. An e-invoice is an e-file which is in a structured format, be it an XML file or a JSON file, which is not even in a human readable file. And we'll show you in the subsequent slides what actually an e-invoice looks like when it says it's not even in a human readable format. So it's a structured file, and once validated by a third party, be it the tax authorities or a certified third party service provider, only then it becomes an e-invoice. So the whole of the session now for the next 1.5, 2 hours that we'll be together, whenever we talk about e-invoicing, It's not a PDF copy, and I think we need to have it in our mind that it's an e-file that would be generated through a report or whatever system, and then once validated, only then it becomes an e-file. And it would be mostly, if we talk about UAE, it would be an XML file. If we talk about Saudi, it would be XML or JSON file embedded with PDF. If we talk about Egypt, it's an XML file again. So it's different formats from, again, in different countries that are being adopted, but it would be a structured electronic generated in a specific format that would be there, which will be called an e-invoice. Now, why e-invoicing? I hope my voice is audible, right? Like it's fine. From some
Good, Ishan.
volume.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. The other question comes in, like, first we have what is e-invoicing, then the second is why e-invoicing? What difference will it make with e-invoicing, right? So there are various benefits that are there for government as well as for businesses. Now, if we speak from a government perspective, obviously, if you see every country that is moving towards digitalization, e-invoicing is one of the key first steps that will help them in digitalization. Right now, any audit that happens, it's more of a traditional audit where they come, they look at your hard copy of invoices. It's more of a traditional audit that happens and looking at whether you have invoice copy or not. Going forward, this will all change with digitalization, where tax authorities or any investigation, any inspections would not focus on your paper copy of invoices. It would be more focused on strategic insights, and that can only happen once you automate all the pieces of business transactions. Key one being e-invoicing, right? So when it's all e-invoicing, it's all real time being shared by tax authorities. They don't need to worry about whether a proper invoice was issued or not. What they need to focus on is more strategic analysis, both from business as well as government perspective. So it brings in more efficiencies in the business operations and also in the audit supports that happen. And also the one of the key other advantages for e-invoicing is obviously minimizing the VAT leakage. And what we have seen in countries where e-invoicing has been implemented in Europe as well, when e-invoicing was implemented, they have seen huge reduction in VAT gaps that happen. And I would like to explain that by way of an example. Say, suppose I have a company where I have a lot of output VAT that's there. I'm doing a lot of sales, but my inputs are not that much. And I have, let's say, millions in output, but very less input tax that I can claim because I'm having a huge margin or whatever could be the reason. Now, what I can do is I can negotiate with someone. I can set up a and not that anyone is doing it over here, but I'm just trying to give an example on what e-invoicing achieves from a government and a VAT collection perspective. And again, sorry, I did not caveat that before starting. I think we had that slide also, which we'll share, that all the views presented here are personal. It's not, don't consider it as a PwC view or anything. So it's all our personal views. Whatever we are doing is as chart accountant members over here and within this group. So again, not affiliation with anything as such. So what we do is, and I'll come back to my example now. I've set up another shop. What I'll do, I'll start asking them to issue me fake invoices. I will start claiming input tax credit on that basis, and I will only pay limited output tax to authorities. Now, the tax authorities would not know what's happening over here unless and until they either come and audit me or this shop that I have opened. And these audits we've all seen in this region. It's generally you have 5-year limit, but not every company gets under the audit horizon or any audit net, right? Because it depends on your materiality, your size, and other factors, whatever FTA or any tax authorities are doing. Now, what will happen is even after 3 or 4 years, when they come to audit, I'll just close this shop and run away. And what I've claimed over these 5 years, all these input tax credit and paid very less taxes to the authorities, right? And if no audit happens for the 5 years, again, it's all good and I've overclaimed input tax. Now, what happens under e-invoicing? If this person issues me an e-invoice today, it will automatically on a real-time basis be informed to the tax authorities as well that this invoice has been issued. What it means that if by next month the tax does not reach out to the tax authorities by the supplier as well as to the customer, the tax authorities would get to know that these invoices were fake and there is no reporting that has been done. So this is the beauty of e-invoicing, where this helps you to reduce the VAT gap from 5 years if audit happens to 3 or 4 months, where all these type of transactions could be caught very easily. And this is the main purpose why e-invoicing is coming in. From a business perspective, if we see, it's not only all the pain for business, right? That because people then question, yeah, we have to invest in like technology, we have to invest in issuing e-invoices, it's more cost for the business. Yes, we agree it's more cost for the business, but in the long term, it brings more efficiencies for your business as well, right? Right now, if I look at from a business perspective, I'm issuing invoices to my customers. I keep chasing them over emails or whatever means that please pay my invoices. And after 1 or 2 months, we have certain customers who come back and say, sorry, I haven't received your invoice. Please issue the invoice again or reshare the invoice and we'll pay you. Now with e-invoicing, it's a real-time sharing of invoicing that's happening between the buyer and the seller. And there is and we will explain that in detail when we go into the subsequent slides, that there is a real-time acceptance or approval of these invoices also that is coming in. So the argument or the reasoning that people generally take, we haven't received the invoices, is no longer there. So from a business perspective, it brings in more efficiencies in my business operations, because the faster the invoices will be processed, the faster I will get the cash for my business, right? So it's a cash flow advantage as well that you will receive in the long run when e-invoicing comes in. So there are various advantages. Obviously, there is cost involved, and again, as we say, right, there is no pain without gain. No gain without pain. So this is a short-term pain that you guys will have, but a long-term, it's a big gain both for the government as well as for the business who are operating under e-invoicing. And now we are also seeing in more and more countries which are actually not mandated e-invoicing as well. Take example, Singapore, where it's voluntary, right? People are actually themselves voluntarily adopting e-invoicing because they are seeing the advantages of digitalization, of these efficiencies that that are brought in as part of all the digital initiatives that are being taken. Let's move to the next slide. And we will try and cover, because we know a lot of people will have a lot of questions, and I think that's what we agreed with Sanjay ji and Jay also, is that we will try and cover as the content that we have in the first one and a half hours, and then we leave at least half an hour or 45 minutes for questions, so that we ensure that every one of you who is attending and would leave this room knows what invoicing is and what is coming in the region. So please bear with us if you have questions, or you can put it in the chat box and we can take it later. Now, let's look at the global trend, right? And that's what we always tell people, that when you talk about e-invoicing, it's not a question of if, it's now a question of when a country will implement e-invoicing. And the graph that is in front of you clearly showcases that in the last 5 years, the rapid increase of countries adopting e-invoicing or bringing in e-invoicing has increased, and is increasing. So there are more than 80 countries that have either implemented or in the process of implementing e-invoicing. There are more than 70 plus obligations that are there on the horizon. So it's not only every country is implementing the same e-invoicing model, every country is implementing a different type of e-invoicing model, depending on what their geographical demographic is, what their technical infrastructure and technology capabilities are. So every country is using different model depending on what they need, what they want to achieve out of this digitalization. And if we see e-invoicing, it's always the first step adopted by any country before they start any new digital initiative. Now, first step is e-invoicing. Then you move to automated filing of VAT returns. Then you move to e-archiving, e-audits, e-reconciliations. So again, it's just a start to the next big step. And I would say there are a lot of more things that are coming in: real-time reporting, real-time access, real-time reconciliations. And that is all would be there once e-invoicing is successfully implemented in any country. And if you look at VIDA, which is the VAT in the digital age in the EU as well, one of the key items that is there in the agenda for VIDA as well is to implement e-invoicing among these EU countries for intra-EU transactions, which is again, and it's clearly replicated. If you see more and more countries on a daily basis are, if not daily, but then weekly or monthly basis are announcing that they are coming up with e-invoicing and with what sort of a model that they are forming. If we move to the next model, next slide, we have different models, and as we mentioned, right, there are 70 plus obligations. What we have done is, for the sake of simplicity, we have categorized different business models that generally countries adopt, and we are trying to put some examples over here on like what different countries are doing, right? So one is a clearance model, CTC, which is CTC stands for Continuous Transaction Control. And I think if I talk about Middle East perspective, two models stand out, which is the centralized model and a decentralized model. If you look at Saudi, Egypt, they have implemented a centralized model, which is, and what do you mean by centralized model? Centralized model is where all the invoices, and again, when I say invoices, I mean e-files that are issued by the taxpayers, are sent to a central platform, which is the tax authority. In this case, like in Saudi, it's the ZATCA. In Egypt, it's the Egyptian tax authorities. And then the central tax authority validates all these invoices on a real-time basis and then shares it either directly with the customers, like what you have an example in Egypt, and or it shares back with the taxpayer, and then taxpayer shares this validated invoice with the customer. And then you are issued a QR code or a UUID that is issued. That is what a centralized model is. So what do we mean by centralized? That everything centralized to a central location, all taxpayers sending in their invoices to a central location, getting it validated, and then sharing with the customer. And customers through this QR code or UUID can verify that this invoice is valid or not. Then there is another key model, which is decentralized model. What UAE is implementing and what recently Oman has announced that they will be implementing is a decentralized model. What it means is that the tax authority themselves do not take the response. And France is another example, as Mark mentioned at the start of the meeting. The tax authority do not take the responsibility for validation of these invoices. They outsource all these responsibility to third-party service providers and who are accredited or certified by the tax authority. And that's why they are called accredited service provider or certified service providers in different countries. And once they are certified, they will be taking up the responsibility for validation of all these invoices. Now, what will happen is, since it's decentralized, there'll be an army of accredited service provider that could be there. And every taxpayer has an option to sign up with one of the service providers with whom they are comfortable, and they can get those invoices validated. Now, this model has some advantages and obviously disadvantages if we compare with the centralized model, which is Saudi and Egypt, because in centralized model, the whole onus and the burden is placed on a central platform. So the government authorities need to ensure that the technological infrastructure to accept the invoices on a real-time basis is much more efficient, because if the system is down for even a couple of minutes, imagine taxpayers issuing millions of invoices on a daily basis. And if the system doesn't, one system doesn't work, the whole invoice system will break, and the customers will not get invoices. You will not get payment unless the invoice is validated. Under a decentralized model, the advantage is because these are private players who are doing this, they will have much better technical infrastructure. And since the burden is also outsourced to different people, the burden is not coming on a single platform. So there are much more efficiencies that can be expected when you go in a decentralized model. On a disadvantage side, obviously, it means more cost for you as business operations. Like, I'm sure some of you might have operations in Saudi and Egypt who are attending here. So if you have operations in Saudi, you have an option to directly integrate your system with government authority. And if your systems are capable enough, you can issue invoices, directly send to the government, get it validated, and then share with the customer. So no cost as such. But if you are under a decentralized model, you are mandated to integrate with one of the accredited service providers. That means more cost for you. These private players obviously would not do things free of cost. So there is more cost for your business operations. That means per invoice basis, whatever you are charging, you will be issued invoices. I don't know. I think I have my internet is perfect and up to date. I don't know if there's limited people, but no, I don't think there's an issue from my side on the voice. But yeah. Great. Okay, so I'll move ahead. So I think that's what the decentralized model is, where again, so it has advantages and disadvantages, right? So one advantage is obviously you will have better infrastructure, better services from these service providers, because if you talk about the centralized model, everything would be required to be in perfect format, otherwise the invoices will get rejected. When you talk about decentralized and you are working with private players on a service provider basis, you can agree with them on some sort of a transformation that can be done to your data before it gets validated. So there'll be more services that these service providers can provide to you to ensure that you are compliant with invoicing and your invoices are not getting rejected. That is the advantage of decentralized, but at the same time, more cost for your business. Whatever you ask them to do, it's more chargeable, right, for you. Under a centralized model, then again, you need to ensure that you either have a service provider or a middleware if your systems are not capable, but that's an option. You can directly integrate as well. I hope that's clear. So I think I'll not get into each and every model because it will be too much to grasp and too much to digest. But I think why I wanted to discuss centralized and decentralized model is because that is the models that are more relevant in the Middle East region as such. And we'll also explain to you what different countries are doing. So it's much better. And we have put examples here, and I think the slides will be shared so you would have it and we can answer later if required. We can move to the next slide, Mark. Great. So I think, yeah, what we talked about till now was more of a global trend, right? What's happening globally. Now, if you talk about Middle East, UAE generally is the first country to always implement like any new initiative. But this time, if you see, there are more countries who have already implemented, and I think we have put down some sort of a synopsis for you on what's happening in Middle East. If we see the first country in Middle East that adopted e-invoicing was Egypt. They started e-invoicing in 2020. Saudi Arabia again started the e-invoicing journey from 2021 onwards, even though the phase 2 integration phase started from January 2023. And right now, I believe we are on the 22nd wave, if I'm not wrong, and I was reading that they've also released the 23rd wave now, where they are requiring taxpayers to above a certain threshold to implement e-invoicing before end of this year. So the 22nd wave last that we had was for taxpayers having revenue above 1.5 million Saudi riyals, who are required to implement e-invoicing or integrate with e-invoicing systems before end of this year. But again, this process is going on for the last 2 years, which is from 2023 onward. Jordan, again, is another country that had introduced e-invoicing in 2023. Even if we go to a further extent, Egypt and Jordan have also now being more rigorous or like more aggressive in their stand. But what they are saying is, if you as a customer, because till now what's happening is, if I am not complying with the invoicing, I will be charged penalties for not issuing invoice. But from a procurement side, I don't need to bother if my supplier is doing that or not. But with Egypt and Jordan, if you see, they've also come out with regulation which says that if you're not collecting the compliant e-invoice from your vendor, your input tax credit will also get disallowed. So you have a bigger P&L impact, bigger issue, because if you're, and in Egypt it's 14%, in Jordan again it's 16%, that's there, the sales tax or VAT. So it's a bigger impact that's there if you're not collecting e-invoicing. And it's more like India model or other models where the responsibility to also ensure that your suppliers are complying with the invoicing is put on to the taxpayers, rather than authorities themselves taking the onus on them and then chasing taxpayers to implement. Oman again has announced that they would be implementing the invoicing starting 2026 and 2027 for sample pilot taxpayers, and then implementing it full-fledged in 2027. And Oman plans to implement invoicing on the same model as to what UAE is doing. Qatar and Kuwait, we know, are in the planning stage, and they plan to implement invoicing along with VAT. Bahrain, we understand, have also plans to implement invoicing, where we expect it to follow more of a Saudi model. But again, there is no clarity as such. And UAE, we all know that they are committed to implement e-invoicing starting July 2026. And again, if you look at the five key transformation project that was announced by His Highness in 2023, one of the key transformation project was e-invoicing. That clearly shows the intent of His Highness, and from the leadership as well, UAE government perspective, to implement e-invoicing and as soon as possible. So again, as I said earlier, right, if we talk about e-invoicing, it's a question of when rather than if. Every country is coming up with e-invoicing. Every country will implement. If there is not there in one country, it will be there. There will be changes continuously. There'll be more and more enhancements will be done as and more countries are learning from each other and doing. So you need to be ready for that also, and you need to have budget and expectation and agility enough to ensure that you are keeping up with the pace as well. Yeah, if we can move to the next slide. I would have typically paused here to get any questions, but I think there are more than 450 people, so I think there'll be a lot of questions, so we'll save questions for the end. Now getting into the specifics of UAE invoicing model. Over to you, Mark, to explain how the UAE invoicing model works.
Thank you, Ishan. So as Ishan said, so here in the UAE, we'll start with the first related information regarding this e-invoicing model. So it's a decentralized model. So as Ishan said, why it's a decentralized model? Because all the process of clearing the invoice before sending it or sharing it with the final buyer and the B2B and B2G operations will be outsourced to private players. So these private players, will be in the UAE known as accredited service providers. So these are service providers platform accredited by tax authorities in order to operate all this clearance process on behalf of tax authorities. So all these invoices will be sent and received through these service providers. So this is why our e-invoicing model in the UAE will be a decentralized model. So this decentralized model will be based on 5 corners. These 5 corners are 5 different parties operating and connecting between each others in order to issue and receive e-invoices. So we will start with the first party, or the first corner, corner 1. As you can see on this slide, so imagine corner 1 as a supplier. It will be the supplier, the issuer of the invoice. So instead of issuing an invoice as companies are doing today. So these suppliers will be issuing an e-file or invoice file or a file including the different information that you want to mention in an invoice. So this file will be shared by Corner One to an accredited service provider. This accredited service provider will be considered as the Corner 2. As you can see here, we have Corner 2 connected to Corner 1. So this accredited service provider will receive from Corner 1 this e-file or this invoice data. Once received, Corner 2 will validate this information based on a list of criteria, a list of rules that we should respect based on the data dictionary published by Ministry of Finance in February. So we had the data dictionary published in February and an update also on this data dictionary last month in June by the PEPOL authority. And I will explain to you what is the PEPOL authority in this case, in our case. So Corner 2 will receive this invoice data, will validate it based on the rules that we have in the data dictionary. Once validated, Corner 2 will generate an XML file. So this is an e-file based on an XML format. So this format, this XML format will be created by Corner 2 based on the data shared from Corner 1. Once created, Corner 2 will share it with Corner 3. Corner 3 will be the accredited service provider operating on behalf of the client, the final client, the B2B or the B2G client. So it's a business, it can be a business or a government entity in the UAE. So this Corner 3, this accredited service provider will receive this XML, will also validate it based on the different rules that we have in the data dictionary, but can also perform additional controls on this XML file. By additional controls, I mean include some business controls on this XML file. Imagine the client wants to receive an invoice with a PO number. In case we don't have a PO, the client will automatically reject this invoice. So the Corner 3, the accredited service provider, that can incorporate this business control into its platform and can also control the XML file upon reception and check if there is if there is no PO number, for example, they will reject it automatically. So in addition to all the regulatory rules that we should respect, these service providers can additionally to that include some business controls to be implemented on the XML file received. Once this XML file is accepted, Corner 3 will share this XML file to Corner 4. Corner 4 will be the receiver, the final receiver of the invoice, the client in this case, the B2B or the B2G client. The transmission of Corner 3 to Corner 4 can be in an XML format if Corner 4 has the possibility to receive XML format, but can also be in other formats depending on the arrangement that Corner 3 and Corner 4 will have between each others. So if Corner 4 does not have the capacity to receive an XML format and to manage an XML format, Corner 3 can adapt the process and can convert it to another format. It could be a PDF, it could be a CSV, it could be a Word, it could be whatever format. Corner 3 and Corner 4 will be accepting between each others. And this will depend on the arrangement that they will have together and on the technical capability of each of these players to incorporate or implement this type of documents or this type of files. So this is concerning the different relationships that Corner 1, Corner 2, Corner 3, and Corner 4 will have between each others. Corner 2 and Corner 3 will be communicating these XML invoices based on the PEPOL network. So the PEPOL network PEPOL stands for Pan-European Public Procurement Online. So it's a standard. Some countries in Europe started using this standard back in 2008, especially for public procurement and for e-files sent or shared with public sector and public entities. And now they are expanding the use of the standard to private players, to private taxpayers. This is why the UAE took the decision to build the e-invoicing model based on this PayPal network, like other European and other countries in the world, like in France, for example, in Oman recently, or also in Singapore in Asia, which is also potentially implementing e-invoicing on the basis of this PayPal network. So Corner 2 and Corner 3 will be both of them connected to this PayPal network. What is PayPal network? Imagine it as the internet. So now we are 450 people here, all connected to the same room or to the same meeting. Each one of us connected through his own or her own computer, her own laptop. So each one of us connected to the internet has a connection with his own or her own IP address. This will be the same case for this PayPal network. Each of these service providers will have an identification to access this network. It will be called an access point. So each service provider will has an access point, and through this access point, they can access this PayPal network and they can share XML invoices between each others and e-documents between each others. This is how Corner 2 and Corner 3 will be operating between each others. And this is how also, in order to have this accreditation, there is for these service providers, there is a list of criteria to respect. One of them will be to have this accreditation from the PayPal authority. So there is an accreditation from tax authorities and Ministry of Finance in UAE, but there is also part of this accreditation, an accreditation proper to this PayPal network to be respected and some specifics to be respected within this solution that is being accredited. So basically, this is how these different corners will be communicating between each others. So this is the part related to taxpayers. And the fifth corner, the last corner of this model, will be related or will be operating on behalf of Ministry of Finance and FTA. So this corner 5, as you can see on this slide, will be connected at the same time to corner 2 and to corner 3. So once corner 2 will create this XML based on the invoice information received from the supplier, in parallel, once this XML created and transmitted to corner 3, corner 2 will have also the obligation to create the tax data document. So in this tax data document, we will have a list of mandatory fields to be mentioned, extracted from the invoice itself and shared with corner 5. So corner 5, which will be operating on behalf of MOF and FTA, will be receiving this data document from corner 2, but also from corner 3. So corner 3, which will be the accredited service provider operating on behalf of the client, will also, upon reception of this e-invoice, extract a list of mandatory data, create the tax data document, and also share it with corner 5. And in this way, corner 5 can have this information related to e-invoicing from corner 2 and corner 3. Logically, scientifically speaking, we should not have any differences between these two sources. If there is any differences, in case we have any differences, this will be checked by tax authorities, Ministry of Finance, corner 5 with corner 2 and corner 3. This will not be the duty of corner 1 and corner 4 to check this tax data document or to generate this tax data document. This will be the duty of and the obligation on corner 2 and corner 3. So me too, Ishan. So I would pause here normally, but because we will be taking all the questions at the end of the call, so I will continue for the last part of the slide related to the message level status. So as you can see here, we have these orange arrows connecting the different corners between each others. So these orange arrows reflect the message level status. By message level status, I mean the status of treatment of the invoice. So what is the status of treatment of the invoice? Is the invoice accepted? Is the invoice rejected? Is the invoice refused? All these statuses will be sent between the corners and also will be shared with tax authorities and Ministry of Finance through corner 5. So we will take an example. We imagine corner 4 as a receiver receiving an invoice. This invoice will be rejected for any reason. For example, we don't have the right amount or the correct amount on this invoice, or the name of the legal name of the client is not the right legal name on this invoice and is not respecting what we have in the legal name related to the tax registration number. So in this case, the receiver will reject this invoice. This rejection status will be shared with corner 3. Corner 3 will take this rejection status and will share it to corner 2. Corner 2, once upon reception of this rejection status, will share it afterwards with corner 1. Corner 1, which will be the initial sender, issuer of the invoice. And in this case, corner one will create a credit note to replace the initial invoice. And in this credit note, corner one should mention a reference to this initial invoice. And this credit note will also be sent through the same process as the initial invoice, from corner one to corner two to corner three and then to corner four. And by this process, tax authorities, Ministry of Finance will have the possibility to have a visibility on all the process from A to Z. From the second the invoice is created and shared with corner two until the reception of this e-invoice, its acceptance or its rejection, depending on the decision taken by corner four. So this is the end-to-end process related to e-invoicing in the UAE. It took us around 10 minutes to present it, but in the real life, starting July 2026, Q2 2026, this process should be done in real time. So all the the sharing of all this data and the message level status should be done in real time by all these service providers, with from one side taxpayers and from the other side corner 5 operating on behalf of MOF and FTA. So this is the main points that you should keep in mind relating to the 5 corner model being implemented here in the UAE and potentially being implemented in other countries. Once all information will be received by corner 5 will deliver all this information after controlling it to a central data platform. So imagine it as a data lake. This data lake will be managed by MOF and FTA. So in this data lake, MOF and FTA will collect this information and will have the possibility in the future to process controls on this data and to store this data in order to process audits and controls and real-time controls on it in the future. So we should keep in mind that this model is only concerning B2B and B2G operations, business to business and business to government for now. Other countries are implementing this model for B2C also through e-reporting. So here in the UAE, we only have e-invoicing within our scope, but other countries like in France, for example, we have more than e-invoicing, e-reporting for some B2C operations and for B2C data also, which can be sent on a batch basis to tax authorities through e-reporting. This will not be the case for now for UAE. It might be the case in the future for additional obligations which will be added to this one. But for now, the information that we have is only related to e-invoicing for business to business and business to government operations, which will be done through a phased approach, a phased rollout. What we know for now is that phase one will be starting in Q2 2026. Some other phases will come after this phase one, but we are still waiting for more clarification relating to these different phases and what are the criteria to take into consideration to categorize all the companies in each phase. So it can be based on revenues, it can be like based on our experience and other countries, it can be based on the size of the company, on the revenue of the company of certain threshold. For now, we still don't have this right information published, but this will come in the upcoming weeks. And by receiving this information, we will have more and more clarification related to this phased rollout, which will be implemented starting Q2 2026.
I think we
So
can sum out
go
the
ahead.
very
Yeah, sure.
a little bit for like the audience to see what the other points we had. But I think, yeah, Mark has covered everything. But just to add on the B2B part as well, right? A lot of questions also that I'm seeing, and I thought we'll address that, is that how do we determine what is a business customer here in that case, right? So it's again, it's clarified by the Ministry of Finance as part of one of the FAQs, is that irrespective whether they have a VAT registration or a CT registration or not, there, if any individual is undertaking any business activity, they would be considered a B2B. So business definition here would be more of anyone undertaking any business activity, irrespective of their VAT registration or CT registration status. And what they have also
Ishan,
said.
sorry. Ishan, I think your voice is not clear. There's one of the messages.
Yeah, is it better now?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ishan, we can hear you now better.
Yeah. Okay, so I think what we wanted to clarify is that if it is like, again, irrespective of the VAT or CET registration, you need to have a like, it's a B2B transaction, and how it will be identified is through a TIN number, which is the tax identification number that will be issued. It would be the first 10 digits of any VAT or CET registration number that you get. And if any customer, any individual who is a business does not have a VAT or a CT registration, they need to apply to FTA to get a TIN number, which would be a 10-digit number. So this 10-digit number would be one of the key mandatory requirements that would need to be there in every invoice for it to get validated. If this number is not there, the invoice will not get validated and it will get rejected. So it is important more from a issuer perspective as well, and as this thing that as part of the KYC, even if a customer is saying that they are a business and they are not getting a VAT and then they're not providing, or they say that they don't have a VAT or CAT registration number for whatever reason, they still need to have a TIN number. The process to apply, it's again the same that you do today. Whenever you apply to FTA for any registration, they generally give you a TIN number. That's always there. And FTA, before this invoicing will get implemented, will also, through guides or something, is expected to release the process how you can obtain a TIN number.
And just Ishan, I saw a question related to corner 2 and corner 3. So corner 2 and corner 3 can be the same operator, the same platform, or different operators. So it depends. Sometimes we will have some cases where the supplier and the client will be using the same service provider. Sometimes the service provider considered as corner 2 operating on behalf of the supplier will be different from the service provider operating on behalf of the client. It depends, but this will not impact the process. Even if the service provider is the same, there will be a specific access for corner 1 and another access for corner 2 to the same platform. So this will not be impacting the e-invoicing transmission based on this model. And for now, these service providers are still in the accreditation process. So we still don't have the list of the accredited service providers in the UAE. So these service providers are still in the process. 2 months ago, Ministry of Finance published the list of criteria to be respected for this accreditation, and now service providers are complying with these criteria and are asking for their accreditation. And this accreditation, we have different steps included in this accreditation. From the first step is to ensure that all the criteria are respected, and the test phase is also completed with tax authorities and Ministry of Finance platforms and all these. So this is why it can take a bit of time, but right now these service providers are being accredited, and the first list of these accredited service providers will normally be published in the upcoming weeks. We still also don't know how many service providers we will have in the UAE, but if we can give you an example of France implementing the same model. So 2 years ago, when French tax authorities started preparing this e-invoicing implementation, they opened the accreditation for service providers, and in the beginning we had a list of around 10 service providers which had their accreditation in the first beginning of this process. And now, 2 years after, we have more than 96 service providers potentially accredited from tax authorities to operate on this e-invoicing market in France. Just giving you this as an example, it might be also the case in the UAE. I'm not saying that we will have 96 service providers, but we will have many service providers operating on the market. Not all of these service providers will be serving the same market. Some of these service providers will be dedicated to SMEs, some others will be dedicated to large corporations, large taxpayers. Some others will be pure players in some industries, like, for example, for financial services, some others for real estate, some others for a specific industry in which they will specialize in. So this will depend on the positioning of each of these service providers, and this is what we are seeing in other countries. This is why it's very important also, when you want to select the service provider, to initiate an impact assessment, to identify the gap that you have, in order to identify the right service provider which can help you comply with this e-invoicing regulation and fulfill the gap that you have. So basically, these are the major points that we wanted to discuss with you today through this slide. One last point related to foreign clients. So if you have a foreign B2B client, so in this case, you can still use the same process as of today and generate a PDF. For example, if you are generating a PDF invoice and send it by email to this foreign client, you can still do the same process today. But for these foreign clients, we will have two processes that you can put in place. First one, we will consider that this client is based in a country having e-invoicing and having access to this PayPal network. In this case, through the tax registration number of this foreign client, when you mention it in your e-invoice, this e-invoice can be also routed and transmitted through this PayPal model to this foreign client based also in another country and having access to this PayPal model. So in this case, if your client has access to this PayPal network, you can still use e-invoicing to send an e-invoice to this client. This is case one. Case two, if your client does not have access to this PayPal model and is implemented and established in a country not having access to e-invoicing through PayPal network, in this case, you can still have the same process as of today. So if you are issuing a PDF format, sending it in an email, you can still do the same. You can still send an email with a PDF attachment for the invoice. But in parallel, you should also share this information or this PDF with Corner 2. So Corner 2 in this case can extract the mandatory information from this invoice and can share it with Corner 5. So even for foreign supplies, foreign sales that you have with your foreign clients, Corner 5 will need to have this information through Corner 2. And this can be done by sharing this readable format, this PDF format with Corner 2. Corner 2 will extract the information and deliver it to Corner 5. So it's more a reporting obligation more than an invoicing obligation for these specific operations. But this will concern only your foreign sales, not the local sales that you have between different UAE taxpayers or government entities.
And I think we're getting some questions around. I hope it's better now.
Yeah.
I was asked to put headphones, so I'm trying to do on a different one, but yeah, still. So on sorry, is it
So
better,
what
Jay?
we can do, Ishan, is anyone wants to ask a question, raise your hand, and we'll bring you on the screen. Mark, you can remove the PPT, and you can go ahead and ask the question to both any of the
Yeah,
speakers.
let's take questions for 10-15 minutes, and then because I'll see a lot of questions coming in, and I think this is the most critical piece and like the most critical slide of the whole presentation where we want people to be clear before we move ahead. Great.
So
Yeah,
you can
let's
raise
do
your
that.
hand, and we will take it. Can you take
So
off the
till
PPT, Mark?
Mark, wait, let me remove. Yeah, so
Yes,
I think till
Dr.
the time someone is raising hand, I think three, four
Yeah.
questions that I saw was on the import of services, right? On the reverse charge, whether any invoice would be required or not. See, the current VAT law requirement, again, I would repeat, remains the same. So in case of import of services, and there's a recent clarification also, if the foreign vendor is not issuing you a commercial invoice, then you need to issue an invoice under reverse charge, which was the whole issue that was going on. And I think FTA during this public clarification that was issued, P 444, if I'm not wrong, clarified that you need to issue an invoice if you're not getting a commercial invoice from outside. So if you are getting an invoice from outside, then you don't need to comply with the invoicing and issue a e-invoice. You will only need to issue an invoice if you're not getting a commercial invoice from your foreign vendor. So the requirement under today, under self for import of services for issuing invoices remains the same. One other question I think before we take was that on tax invoice, simplified tax invoice, whether the terminologies will be same. Yes, it would be same, but then for simplified tax invoices, it's only for B2C. In Saudi and Egypt, you are required to issue invoices for B2B and B2C also, which is B2C for simplified. Here, it's only applicable for B2B and B2G cases. So there'll be no simplified invoices that should be there ideally. It should be tax invoice, tax credit note. And that also, when you talk about in XML format, and we'll show you guys in the slide also, which we will cover, it will have a code because it's all PayPal codes and everything. It would be like, and it's an encrypted XML file. So in XML, it would be more like code 388 for tax invoice, 381 for tax credit note. I may be messing up the codes, but that is how it's being done.
So that and export again for all exports, you will need to issue an e-invoice as well. Now we
We
can
have
take questions.
Nasir
Yeah.
for a question. Nasir sir, please go ahead with your question, please.
Yeah, thanks for allowing me to ask the question. See, I want to ask, if there is a time gap between input claim and like, but I mean, if there is a time lag before claiming the input VAT, as per the public clarification P017, the buyer, he can claim input VAT after the intentions to make the payment is made, like within 6 months. Within 6 months from the payment due date, he can claim input VAT. So I can see there is a kind of a
Sorry,
huge gap.
let me
Huge gap.
clarify.
Yeah.
Nasir,
How this
so
point will be addressed?
correct. Sorry to cut you off, but I think we are mixing things up. Again, I'll repeat the same thing. VAT law requirement continues to be the same. So right now, you are allowed to claim input tax credit not within 6 months, within two tax periods of receiving the invoice. The point that you are making is that for claiming input tax credit, you need to meet certain conditions. And one of the conditions is that you should get a valid invoice, which you should get a valid e-invoice under the invoicing regime. You should have an intention to make the payment within 6 months. If you don't have any intention to make the payment, then ideally, why should you claim the input tax credit also, right? Government will say, if you don't want to make any payment, why do you want to claim the tax back from me also? So if you meet all those requirements, then you need to claim the input tax credit within the same tax period or within the next tax period. And that requirement will continue to be the same under e-invoicing as well. I
Now, my
hope that
question is how
clarifies.
the validation will be done when there is a huge time gap. So
There is
that
no
is from
time
the
gap. No, it's all
database.
happening on a real-time basis. You are getting the e-invoice today again. I'm getting it on a real-time basis. Now, from an AP side, and again, I'll not get into the VAT argument, but a lot of companies and practically take a position that we will only consider an invoice received once we accept it, because we will not consider it received unless we have accepted the invoice. You may send it to me for 1 million, but I only had to pay 100,000. So that again, you will need to ensure that your AP team does those validations and checks those. You will need to bring efficiencies in your AP processes to ensure that you are validating the invoice quickly. Now, UAE has not defined whether they will give you a limited time to either accept or reject the invoice. If I take example of Egypt, there you have 72 hours to either accept or reject the invoice. And if you don't do that, it's deemed accepted. So UAE, there is no clarity as of now how that would work. But then ideally, your AP processes should be capable enough to accept the invoice as soon as they get it, because now under invoicing, because tax authorities are getting access on a real-time basis, they will have visibility. If you have received the invoice in, say, June and you're claiming it in August and your return period is monthly, they can question you saying that you're claiming the input tax after two tax periods. So you should not be claiming it now. Go for a voluntary disclosure or a different thing. So efficiencies are required in the processes.
Perfect. Sadiq, go ahead with your question, please.
Thanks, Jay, and thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
you're
can.
audible.
Yeah. So, Ishan, my question is, I think there is a transaction amount limit. I think it's mentioned in the initial document. It's around 50,000 dirham. So this 50,000 dirham transaction limit is there, and this is
What
tax or
transaction
this
limit?
is
Sorry.
the transaction having more than 50,000 dirham, they need to initially e-invoice in the first phase,
No,
or there
no,
is no limit?
there is no limit prescribed. So today again,
Okay.
tax invoice needs to be issued even if you're doing a 1 dirham sale and if you're registered for VAT purposes. So you need to charge VAT on that. If it's a taxable supply, irrespective of the amount, you have to issue a tax invoice. If it's a out of scope or exempt supply, as of now, as we speak, and I saw certain questions on that also, you will need to issue a commercial e-invoice, because as per the data dictionary that was released by the tax authorities in February, it's not. And again, e-invoicing does not, please don't consider it as only tax project. It's a business project, right? So what they're saying is for all exempt and out of scope supplies, you need to issue a commercial e-invoice. And for all taxable supplies, you need to issue a tax invoice irrespective of the amount if you are covered under the invoicing. What Mark was
B2B
mentioning
and
on the
B2G.
limit is, yeah, on B2B and B2G only, yes.
Okay.
And what Mark was mentioning on the phases would be if then they announce that which taxpayers are required to comply with invoice. So once you fall under that phase, when you need to comply with it completely for all
Oh,
B2B and B2G transactions. Yeah.
understood.
Thank you.
Thank
Paul, go
you.
ahead with your
Hello, hi. Actually, now many foreign businesses or subsidiaries of foreign businesses are maintaining their books of accounts outside UAE. So till now they are filing their returns outside UAE and maintaining books of accounts outside UAE. So how does this impact them?
See, again, they are issuing invoices today also, right? They
Yeah.
might be using system, they are doing it on cloud and all. So see, again, there are no specific data residency requirements that are released as of now. So as of now, there is nothing which requires you to do over and above what you're doing today. Like Saudi has data residency requirements. UAE does not have that now. As of now, if you ask me, you can continue doing that as long as you are capable to issue a e-invoice and integrate with an ASP within UAE to get those validated on a real-time basis. So if you can get that done, good, you should continue what you're doing. If they bring in a requirement saying that you need to have data residency here, then it's a different scenario. But as of now, that's not there.
So whoever is the outside ERP provider, so they will have to do the ASP accreditation here in order
So
to
again, that's
generate.
what I'm saying. You can only integrate with an ASP who's certified by the UAE Ministry of Finance, right? So and one of
Correct.
the requirement for certification is that that ASP needs to be a local company with a minimum paid up capital, and there are a lot of requirements that are there for accreditation. So a foreign entity cannot be an ASP. Ideally, they will need to have some presence in UAE. Only then they will get an accreditation from the Ministry of Finance. So what I'm saying is, whatever document you are issuing, it needs to be validated by an ASP in UAE, like because that ASP will be accredited by the Ministry of Finance in UAE.
Okay, any idea how to address this issue? Like, is there any mediator in between who can do the link between the outside UAE ERP software provider and the
Hey,
local
that's again
ASP
also
provider?
possible, right? Yes, they can have a middleware in between where they outsource it to a party here who can then issue, like, say, tax engine, like set up a tax engine here and then issue invoices and then get validated here. There are workarounds that are there, but again, that data needs to be there. One of the requirement as per the VAT law and as per the commercial law also is that the data should be readily available. So that requirement is still there, which you need to
Okay.
comply with it today also.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sarin
Thank
sir,
you.
please go ahead with your question.
Ishan, thank you very much for the very elaborate presentation today. My question
Thank you,
is,
sir.
will it be acceptable and welcome by the buyers to issue this, or it will be a burden for them?
Sorry, buyers, as in like when you are receiving the invoice.
Yes.
So for them, it's not a like there is nothing. See, if you are required to comply with the invoicing, you need to integrate with ASP both on your output side and as well as your inbound side as well. So you have that mandatory requirement. You welcome it or not is a different thing, and I think you need to
You don't
comply
have
with
a
it. It's a
choice.
requirement. Like it's like
Okay.
VAT, CT, right? You don't have a choice. If you are required to comply, you need to comply. Whether you are happy or not, it's a different thing.
Okay,
That's why I'm trying to
sir.
look at the positive side to tell you guys, right, that there are benefits. So, but other
Okay.
than that, if you don't see any benefit, you don't have an option.
Okay, second question, immediate one, short one. Will it be on percentage basis charges to the service provider, or will it be on invoice wise
It
charges?
depends. Again, there will be different ASPs having different pricing strategies, different this thing, right? Because again, as I said, these are all private plays. They will have their own pricing strategies. Some might do it on a bundle basis, saying that, like, say, for up to 10,000 invoices, I'll charge you this much, then 10,000 to 20,000, I'll charge you this much. Some will be saying that we'll charge you on a per invoice basis. Some will be charging you. Again, I can't say anything because every ASP will have their own pricing strategy. So there is no regulated this thing that they need to have a fixed price or a constant price as of now. So they can decide their pricing strategy as per their commercial decision. It's a commercial decision.
Do you see any of our CA firms around friend circle becoming these service providers?
A lot of companies in, like, I think again, yeah, you will have, I'm sure.
Let's
But
wait for FTA list to come in,
yeah,
sir. We'll see.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Okay,
can't
thank
disclose
you.
on this forum, but yeah.
Tarun, go
Thank
ahead
you.
with the question,
Yeah.
please. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for this session. It's a great insight we learned today. I just need to check what happened for those cases wherein the buyer is not mandated to issue e-invoice. So in those cases, you know, for us it is applicable, but we are dealing with certain other B2B customers who are not liable for this ASP and all. Then how will we handle those situations?
Yeah, Mark, do you want to take this
Yes,
up?
thank you.
Yeah, because I think you addressed this, so better you take this up.
Exactly. And today also we had the same question. So, related to this specific case, Tarun, so in this case, the same process as you are applying today can be maintained for like once the invoicing will be in place. So if your client is not part of phase one, for example, and is part of phase two of this enrollment of the e-invoicing mandate, so in this case, you will address your e-invoices to clients part of phase one through e-invoicing. And for all the clients, B2B clients, which who are not part of this phase one and are out of the scope of e-invoicing for now, you can still and you can maintain the process that you have today. If you issue, for example, a PDF invoice and you send it by email, this can be maintained as it is. Once this client will be enrolled in e-invoicing, in this case, you will switch and you will send an e-invoice through the accredited service provider to this client.
Yeah, and just to add, Tarun, from your side, it would still be you are still required to issue an invoice. So that 5 corner model will change to a 3 corner model, where what will happen is, as corner one, you will issue an invoice to your corner two. Your corner two will validate, but then when they will look into the PayPal database, as to what Mark was explaining, they will not find this TIN number of that customer because he's not part of the invoicing framework yet. So he will then send that, he validate the invoice, send the information to Ministry of Finance or tax authorities on a real-time basis, but at the same time will send this invoice back to you saying, sorry, I can't identify the customer because he's not part of the PayPal. He or she is not part of the PayPal. And then what you will do is, as what Mark was saying, as you are doing today, you will still send them a PDF copy of invoice, because if you send them an XML file and we'll show you how the XML looks like, they won't be able to understand anything. They'll say, please give me something that I can understand. So you will keep the XML for you with you for records and send them the PDF copy so that they can use that to claim input tax credit. And when they are covered, your corner two will automatically again now start sending directly to them through corner three and corner four. But it does not take away your responsibility to issue invoice. You will still need to issue.
Right, understood. So, and the same thing is applicable for the foreign, if you are, getting something from the foreign customers.
Correct,
Same thing
exactly.
will
It's
apply.
more of a corner three model in foreign also. If it's a not, if that customer is not in a PayPal country, say it's outside France or Belgium, then the tax authorities, and they have mentioned that in one of the FAQs also, that they will give you a dummy tin. In which case you will need to mention this dummy tin in the invoice so that your invoice does not get rejected. And as we said, like, their tin needs to be there in all the invoice. Now, if that customer does not have a tin, the tax authorities will give you a dummy tin that you will mention, but then tax authorities can maintain a database of all the customers where invoices are issued without a proper tin, and they can investigate. But then it's the same model, what will happen pre-corner.
Okay.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Varun. Thanks a lot. Ma'am, please go ahead with your question.
Thank you to both of the speakers. Very nice introduction, succinct and crisp. How does this all play into the VAT return? I mean, do we still keep doing the VAT return, or what is the long-term plan for this? I think, Mark, you alluded to it, that it might get automated at some stage.
Exactly. So this is what we can consider for the future. So from a VAT return perspective, VAT returns will be maintained as of today. So nothing will change to this process. At the end, so in the future, in the upcoming years, and just to keep in mind that this e-invoicing is only related to B2B and B2G operations and not B2C. So through this e-invoicing process, MOF and FTA will not be capturing all the data related to all businesses. B2C operations will be still out of the scope of e-invoicing. But once B2C will be also in the scope of this regulation in the upcoming years and in the future, and at this moment, MOF and FTA will have the possibility to pre-fill VAT return. So this will be the end objective of this regulation. This will not be the case today. They will not start doing it as of Q2 2026 or 2027. But once all is complete and all taxpayers and business operations will be within this scope, at this time, FTA will have this possibility to pre-fill these VAT returns and validated by taxpayers once they are pre-filled. So this is one of the final objectives that we can think of for the future. And a second also thing that I wanted to mention related to this question also, tax authorities and MOF will receive information from two sources today, or once the e-invoicing will be implemented, I mean, from VAT return, but also from e-invoicing. So this is why it's very important also to avoid any differences from these two sources, to ensure that internally within your companies you are using the same source of truth and you have the same source of truth for this data. So the data that you are using for e-invoicing purposes is the same data that you are using to prepare your VAT return, in order to avoid any discrepancies between these two sources, because any differences at this level will be triggered by tax authorities, and this can also this can bring tax authorities to have more and more controls on taxpayers if there is any differences based on this data shared.
Yeah, and
So
I think
you
if I can
mentioned
just
that this is in
sorry.
an XML file, right?
Yes.
We wouldn't be able to see what ultimately goes into the system. But I just wondered, currently in the VAT return, your customs portion is populated, right? So will they be? Can we expect such a thing to happen, that by e-invoicing, this is the amount of input and this is the amount of output? Is that
We can't deny
in the
that, right? That
pipeline?
can also happen in the future.
It can
But
happen.
again, or to what Mark was also saying, just to add to that, and what you are saying, because the XML is also generated from your systems, right? The reports are based on your this thing. So, and I'll just to give you an example, right? What Mark was also trying to say in a simple terms. If you are, say, suppose issuing e-invoicing during a particular month, you have issued e-invoices for 1 million dirhams, and your VAT return, when you file at the end of the month, you report 3 million, the tax authorities will not question, because obviously there'll be B2C suppliers and other suppliers that you wouldn't have captured. But if it is opposite, like if you're issuing invoices for 1 million, but you're reporting in your VAT return 500,000, then it's a clear-cut case where they can come to you next month saying, guys, like you have issued invoice for 1 million, but you're reporting only 500,000. Give me the reconciliation. So you need to ensure that on a monthly basis, you start preparing those reconciliations also, to ensure that, to explain the reason why there is a gap between your difference between your VAT return and your e-invoicing. Second, on your customs point, and this is what we are now seeing more and more in Saudi also, with e-invoicing getting implemented, people are getting questions on customs reconciliation as well, because if you are importing something and then you are selling, you need to also give e-invoicing, or like, because e-invoicing can give them a data, right, on what all invoices you have issued, but then you have imported so much, you're already issuing only for output on this. What is the reason for differences? So people are being questioned on reconciliations as well. So I think reconciliation will play a key role once e-invoicing is implemented, and you need to make that a regular exercise as part of your compliance processes.
Thank you.
Next voice we will hire. Here is Srinivas. Go ahead with your question. His video is not
Thank
working.
you. Thank you very much. Sorry, my camera is not working. Ishan and Mark, very nice presentation. Thank you. Very good insights. I have one question about the data privacy.
Yeah.
The ASPs, can they read our data? Can they understand our data? Because one user to the other user, it may not be readable, but can they understand the data? That is the first question. Second question is, some of the government entities, as of today, they ask about Arabic. I know it is a little bit stupidity to say this here, but is there any such special requirements will come into place?
Great. So I think first question, yes, they would be having access to your data, right? Because they'll be validating this data. So they can only validate once they have access to this. And post their validation, they will transform it into an encrypted XML file, so that only the customer to whom it's addressed to can decrypt and get this. But again, to your comfort, and that is why accreditation is one of the key requirements, because to get this certification from Ministry of Finance or FTA, they will need to meet a lot of accreditation requirements. One of them is to ensure that they have the national cloud storage. They meet those requirements. There are a lot of ISO 27001 to 2301 business continuity, data confidentiality certifications that they will need to take. So from MOF side, from tax authority side, they will try to ensure that your data does not get leaked, because obviously these ASPs and your data is going out of your system. And that is one of the concerns that we get from all the customers who we speak to these days, is that what about my data confidentiality? It will be ensured that these service providers have sufficient certifications in place to maintain your data confidentiality and not leak it. And I think that's the level of comfort only that you can get at this point in time. So you don't have any option. If you have that much concern, I think the other option is becoming an ASP yourself, which will be a complicated process. And like again, if your business is of that size, you can decide to, yeah, you can take a call to be an ASP. But other than that, no option on that. But again, from government side, they are they are ensuring that all the certifications and everything is in place. What was your second question? Sorry, I forgot. Mark,
The
I don't know if
specific
you.
requirements of Arabic versions and
Yeah, so
specific
no
formats.
requirements as such. The VAT law requirement that are there today continues to be there tomorrow. You can have it in English or Arabic, whatever you want. So from an e-invoicing perspective, there is no specific requirement to have it in Arabic, unlike Saudi, because Saudi you need to have invoices in Arabic. Here, that's no requirement will not be there. And also one more requirement that will not be there as compared to Saudi and Egypt, like, and why I'm comparing again and again is because a lot of people here have regional roles, so they should know in Saudi and Egypt, every invoice issued and validated needs to have a QR code or a UUID, which is there. That's also again not a requirement in UAE. So there'll be no QR code or UUID requirement in UAE as well.
Okay, moving on. Next question. Purushottam, please go ahead with your question. Oh, you got yourself unmuted again. Okay, go ahead, Purushottam, unmute yourself. Okay,
Hello.
yeah, go ahead.
Hi. We have a business in the distribution. Okay.
Mhm.
Now we supply the goods, and our present model is we send the invoices along with the goods. Okay. And the invoices are stamped by the customers.
Mhm.
Now, the question is once the e invoicing starts, until the customer accepts the invoices, we don't generally deliver the
Delivery.
goods. Now the question is, like, we have big retailers, okay? Sometimes they accept the invoice. If any discrepancy is there, we generally issue a revised invoice. So in the e-invoicing, what is the process? After delivery of the goods, can we cancel the e-invoice and issue a fresh invoice or a
You can
tax?
only cancel an invoice, and I think a lot of these things come when we look at e-invoicing, right? Today, also, if you ask me, let's forget about e-invoicing. You cannot cancel an invoice or revise an invoice once issued, and the same will be more complicated once you issue an e-invoice. Once it's done, you can only cancel an invoice through a credit note, which is a tax credit note, and then
Okay.
or issue a new invoice. So that you should not be doing today also and not be doing under e-invoicing as well because that is non-compliant. What you can do from a practical perspective, if you have that concern, is issue them a performa invoice or an Excel, like whatever it is, ask them to confirm, and then only you issue a proper e-invoice so that you don't have to go through the process of credit note e-invoice. Under e-invoicing, it will be more regulated, as I said, right? Today, you can do anything, whatever you're doing, and that will only be noticed once an audit happens because the VAT returns are filed on a summary level basis. But under e-invoicing, it's
Mhm.
all the transactions are being reported to tax authorities on a real-time basis, not only from your side, but from your customer side as well. And as Mark explained, the message level status is going both from corner 3 and corner 2 to the tax authorities. So if you issue an invoice today, you don't issue a credit note, and you issue a new invoice, then what will happen is, and I'll take that example that I was trying to explain to Jayalakshmi ji when I was giving that VAT return example. Now, suppose you only have issued two invoices during this month. You issued one invoice for 1 million. Your customer says, sorry, I don't accept this. Please issue it for 500,000. The terms were 500,000. Now you don't issue a credit note and you issue another invoice for 500,000. And you cancel this invoice in your system or whatever, but without issuing a credit note. And when you file your VAT return, you will only put 500,000. But in MOF or FTS records, there is 1.5 million that is there. So they can question you tomorrow saying that you issued invoices for 1.5 million and reported only 500,000. So there is underreporting of VAT that you have done. So unless you now issue a valid tax credit note, your tax settlement will not be possible. So you'll need to end up paying more taxes with penalties.
So, what is the practical solution for this? You raise an
I gave you
invoice,
the practical solution. Issue a
Oh my
performa invoice. Yeah.
but it's like a line sales. It's not like that you predefine the delivery. It's like you take your van guys goes for a sale, okay, to the individual customers, correct? So he has
See, that's a
to either.
challenge. Yeah, I agree. But I think then better is like you send performa invoice with your delivery guys, and then I think during the end, once they accept, then at the end of the day you issue the final invoice because again, I can't think of anything else. We can brainstorm it separately, but I think that's the best practical solution that I can think of.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you. Thank you.
Ramza, please go ahead with your question.
Thank you for the insightful session. So my question is in case of group filing, all the team members of the group would be, I guess, have a separate PIN number And as a supplier, what are the information supplier is obligated to have on the invoice in terms of group PRN number or for the TIN number separate? You could shed light on that.
Yeah,
The
so we will
second
cover
question,
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
the second question, like Mr. Purushottam adding to that, since all these invoices would be going electronically to the buyers, so I believe the commercial dispute and all that would be treated as an acknowledgement that invoices have been delivered to the customer.
So that is one of the arguments, commercial argument that you can take, because right now customers can take an argument, right, that I did not even receive the invoice. So that then you will, under e-invoicing, you will have proof that that invoice was received by the customer, and they can't deny the fact that they haven't. But any other dispute that happens on that invoice, it's outside the e-invoicing. That continues the way it is done today, handled today. Only defense that you have in your favor now is that you know that the customer has received the invoice, and you can prove that through this e-invoicing mechanism. To your, I think, and your first question, sorry, can you repeat that like quickly?
Which was for the group filing, group
Sorry, so on the
PRN
fields, yeah. So
versus
you
TIN
mentioned, so every tax invoice will need to have minimum mandatory 50 fields that needs to be there, and they have defined that as of now. And every commercial invoice needs to have 49 mandatory fields. Now I can't list all those requirements here, and we'll cover that briefly when we go through the subsequent slides if we get time. But we have some of the key requirements that would be there. See, one of the thing is, as per Article 59 of the VAT law today, the information that you need to mention today continues to be there in the e-invoice also, and in a specific format. So like if we take an example of date, the date needs to be in YYYMMDD format. So they will give you the format also in which all the information needs to be there, because it needs to be in a structured format. You just can't decide anything that you want, but it needs to be in a structured format. And that is the whole objective of e-invoices, so that it's in a common language which can be read by all the systems. And those requirements are there. I think data dictionary is available, and they can be shared later or subsequently also. But and that was on for public consultation. So we expect some updates on that. And recently, the tax authorities have also released on the PEPAL network, which is also public. We will share the link with everyone post the meeting also. You can go there and see. There are more than 250 fields that are there that can be there in every invoice. And they have mentioned what is mandatory, what is conditional. So like, for example, if you're issuing a credit note, then the preceding invoice number it's a conditional information right now, but it becomes mandatory at that point in time.
In
So
case
I
in
think,
case of the applicability of this business case, exactly,
yeah.
Sean.
Okay,
Yeah.
couple of more questions and then we
In
go back.
case of, I think in case of all the members of the group, will they have separate TRN, or it would be one one PIN, or the separate PIN for all the members of the group?
That's a good question. So right now, also, if you see, every member of the group has a separate TIN number that is generally suspended when they become part of the VAT group, right? So those 10 numbers might need to now get activated again to mention that. So even if you go for if you have a VAT group, and if you will go to any particular entity in that entity, you will see that they will all have been assigned a TIN number, because that's the first 10 digits of every number. So that will be there for everyone. Now, the interesting piece around VAT group is, as of now, like today, there is no requirement to issue invoices for intra-VAT group entities, right? Because it's all out of scope. Now, if I look at technically, as per the data dictionary that was issued and as per the clarifications that are there, for intra-VAT group entities also, any transaction you need to issue a commercial e-invoice, which will again be an administrative issue, right? Because the whole purpose of setting a VAT group is so that you don't have to charge VAT, you don't have to issue invoices, but that will be there. Now, we expect FT or MOF to release some sort of a guidance or exclusions that would be there under e-invoicing, which all transactions would not require any invoicing. We hope that this gets covered under that, because otherwise it's a big administrative issue right now. Because and if you look at the requirements also and the data dictionary, because what they mention is, for if any intra-VAT group entity is also issuing, every VAT group entity will need a separate integration with an ASP. That is also one of the key requirements. So then it will ensure, like, it require that you have VAT TIN number of that relevant entity also mentioned, and the TIN number of the representative entity also mentioned. Yeah.
This is a conditional information, exactly, Ishan, in case we have VAT group. And in case we are issuing an invoice from an entity part of a VAT group, the information related to the VAT group is also becomes mandatory to be mentioned in the invoice. The TIN of the VAT group becomes mandatory. The legal name of the VAT group becomes mandatory also. So this is a business group related to this business case. And once it's applicable, all these data becomes mandatory. This
Okay.
can be reflected in the data dictionary, and we can, as Ishan said, share it with you after this session.
Okay. Last question before we go back to the slide. Vishan, go ahead with your question, and then we'll go back to the remaining slide first.
Yeah, thank you, Ishan and Mark, for the insightful presentation. My question is about the self-invoicing. If an entity is doing a self-invoicing, how this will be handled in the e-invoicing framework?
So self-invoicing, that can continue to happen. I think they've clarified that as part of the FAQs also, the Ministry of Finance has done that you can, because you will have to then agree with your buyer that they will not issue invoices, and then you will have to integrate their also TIN number with your ASP and ensure that that self-invoicing happens through their TIN. So that can also continue happening under e-invoicing as well.
But there will be no two ASP in that case.
You will need to, how can you have two ASPs? No, because see, you can have a different ASP because ASP, every taxpayer can have only one ASP.
Correct.
For both sales and procurement. So if you are issuing an invoice, then you will need to ensure that through this ASP only that the self-billing cases also gets handled.
Correct.
You cannot have two
And
ASPs.
second question is about the advance adjustment. Right now, what is happening? Some of the ERP systems are not able to handle the advance adjustment on the invoice on the supplier. The invoice of advance which was created, we are creating a credit note when we are doing a supply.
Yeah, so that's not the correct mechanism because you have that lot of cases this time. Like again, I see that lot also because another issue is retention payments, advances, all these are issues. But then ideally, as per the invoicing, again, the tax law requirement stays the same. So if you have to issue an VAT invoice, a tax invoice at the time of receipt of advance, and then when you are issuing the invoice for the remaining amount, you can again issue a tax invoice and mention that this advance already received, so the balance amount only is subject to tax. Because if you look at the credit note technically can only be issued in 4 scenarios, right? And receipt of advance is not one of them where you can technically issue a credit note. So ideally, that should not be done under the invoicing. You need to have that fixed and ensure that you are issuing the right invoices at that time.
Yeah, because in ERP system, what is happening is the auto invoice is taking place, and when the auto invoice is running in the system, that time this advance adjustment is not possible.
So this is one of the key change, and that is why what we are telling clients is they need to start in advance, because these are the complications that you will need to sort out with your IT team so that they don't continue to happen under e-invoicing, because otherwise they'll make you non-compliant, right?
Okay.
But that is a challenge, I agree with you, and that is one of the bigger issues like most of the companies are facing, but not only here, in globally wherever e-invoicing is there. And I think this is one thing that needs to be fixed as well, from both a system perspective as well as from e-invoicing perspective.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Continue with the slides now. And Nimish bhai, don't worry, we will come back to you after completing all the slides.
So Mark, we can share the screen again.
Yes. Now I shared my screen.
Great. So yeah, so I think let's move forward. We'll try and cover the remaining. We have a couple of slides, but we'll try to cover as much as possible in the next 10 to 15 minutes so that we can take more questions as well. But yeah. Let's see how it goes.
Sorry. Okay, perfect. So just regarding the timelines, we have already mentioned all these, but just to recap all these information already published by FTA and Ministry of Finance. So to date and during 2025, so MOF has released the data dictionary for public consultation on the 27th of February. In March 2025, accreditation criteria for these service providers has been also published by MOF, and in second quarter 2025, we were waiting for some ministerial decisions related to some pending information from MOF. So these ministerial decisions were not published in Q2 2025. So we are expecting the publishing of these ministerial decisions in the near future. So normally it will be in summer, we hope so. So we are waiting for it for some clarification regarding some information that we mentioned today. For example, the phased rollout, the criteria to take into consideration for these phases, or some also exemptions, operations of e-invoicing, potentially exempted operations of e-invoicing might be also part of these ministerial decisions, but we are still waiting for it to be published in the near future. So these are
Generally, we always look at during Fridays, right? So we are expecting any Friday that this information can get released. So mostly I'm more focused on MOF website or these thing on Fridays.
exactly. Okay, so these are information that you already mentioned. So this is an example related to XML e-invoice. So as you can see, an e-invoice based on an XML format is not a human readable format. So it's more a machine readable format. This is why service providers will also provide clients with a readable format based on this XML format. So these service providers can generate a PDF format based on this information mentioned in this XML format. This will be also potentially covered by the offer proposed by these service providers, because this XML format we will not be as a human able to read it in a very easy way. So this is an example that you can consult also from your side. And we wanted also to present to you, but we already responded to some of these questions, and we already mentioned that the the program consultation document published in February 2025 is including 16 business cases. So these business cases could be depending on the business or the operation that you may have. So it can be, for example, a zero-rated supply is one of the business cases published in this program consultation paper. We have also deemed supply. We have commercial invoices that also is part of it. Standard tax credit note is part of it. So for each business case, we will have, additionally to the initial 50 mandatory fields that we have in the standard tax invoice, we will have additional conditional fields which will become mandatory in case we are applying this business case. And this is the case of the standard tax credit note. So standard tax credit note, for example, just to make it more tangible and more clear for you, standard tax credit note should include a reference to the previous invoice. In normal case, this reference to the previous invoice is not a mandatory invoice. It's not a mandatory data. It could be an optional data for some of, for example, it can be an optional data for continuous supplies or some of your specific business operations. But it's not a mandatory data based on the regulation that we have. Within e-invoicing, the tax credit note should include a reference to a previous invoice. This is already the case today for tax credit notes, and it will be the case for electronic tax credit notes. So each credit note that you will issue will be mandatory for it to include a reference to the previous invoice. This reference could be the ID of the previous invoice, for example, and so on. So each of these business cases, and you can see it in the public consultation document that we can share with you after this session, each business case that we have will include some conditional data which will become mandatory in case we are applying this business case. We had also we wanted also to explain to you or to show you a bit the PayPal data dictionary, how it is structured. So as you can see here in this slide, so this PayPal data dictionary is structured in different business terms and business groups. So each business group will include in it different business terms, different data. So each data will have an ID, will have a business term, a specific description of the data, will have some information related to the cardinality of the data. So 1.1 means that this data is mandatory. 0.1, this means that the data is optional. So you will have different cardinality information that is explained here, and this is already explained on the PayPal portal, so you can have more information about it. And for each data, you can also have the definition of the data. So what is the definition of each business term that we have? And if you click on each business term, you can have the different rules to be respected for each of these data. So all this is consolidated on this PayPal portal, and you can have access to it easily through the PayPal website. And you can refer also to this presentation for more information related to this PayPal data dictionary. Then at a glance, we wanted also to tell you or to give you more information, practical information on how e-invoicing will potentially impact your organization. So we tried to group these impacts in 5 different categories. So first category will be AP and AR processes. So AP and AR processes will potentially, of course, be impacted by this e-invoicing. So real-time compliance monitoring internally within your systems will be one of the challenges that you should incorporate within your system in order to keep an eye on all this real-time process that is being done through this 5-corner model. Mandatory invoice status transmission. So if you want to handle this message level status internally within your system, so this will be a bit challenging for you in order to integrate or to include this tracking of your message level status within your system. You will have potential system upgrades to do in order to incorporate all these new obligations, and alignment also of these target processes with the external ASPs. So your internal processes with the process of the accredited service providers should be also aligned before implementing this accredited service provider within the landscape. So this is on a high level the main impacts that you will have on your AP and AR processes. From a data perspective, and this is very important to keep in mind, transactional and master data will be impacted by this e-invoicing mandate. So we will have an impact on your customer, on your supplier, and on your items master data. In this e-invoice, we have some of the data which will be mandatory to be mentioned. This is why you should ensure that all this data is available within your system, but also, even if it's available, you should ensure that this data is compliant with the management rules that we have within the data dictionary in terms of format, in terms of data, in terms of information to be mentioned. And we will give you some practical examples in the next slide regarding this transactional and master data challenge that you may face. So basically, you should ensure that all these data that you have in the data dictionary is available and is compliant in terms of quality with the different rules that we have in the data dictionary. IT infrastructure is also very important to take into consideration. And as Ishan said, different stakeholders should be involved in this project. And IT is one of the people or one of the teams who should be participating to this e-invoicing process and the invoicing implementation in order to ensure that your IT infrastructure and your current IT infrastructure have the possibility to be connected to external service providers. This can be done through API or through any other protocol of connection. This is why you should assess in the beginning what is the capability of your IT systems in order to see how you can evolve and how you can adapt your IT infrastructure to be connected to external service providers. Real-time VAT reporting, this is very important. As we said, in order to avoid any discrepancies or differences between e-invoicing data and VAT return data, you should review the VAT process or the process of creation of your VAT return internally in order to ensure that there is no differences between these two sources of data that you are using, and we have the same source of data for these operations. And finally, we should not forget also that behind all this digitalization and this automation, we will have people working on a day-to-day basis. This is why training the people, communicating to your internal stakeholders, but also to clients and suppliers on this e-invoicing and what will be your strategy for implementing the e-invoicing is a very important point, and it's a crucial subject to be handled internally in order to avoid any like missed or like the upskilling of your in order to miss any missed upskilling of your people or your employees, in order for them to all to be on the same level and on the same page regarding the new processes to be implemented based on this e-invoicing. So these are the 5 main points or 5 main levels that you should focus on in order to start your e-invoicing journey by starting an e-invoicing impact assessment, taking into consideration all these different levels in your organization. And we wanted just before going through the last part of our presentation and taking your remaining questions. So here we listed on the left of the slide the different information that we have as mandatory information based on the current regulation that we have in the UAE, so the VAT regulation. So as you can see, so the first data that we will have in a tax data document will be the title of this document. The title of this document today will be tax invoice, for example. So if the document is entitled tax invoice and the XML invoice, the e-invoice that you will be issuing tomorrow through these accredited service providers, this will not be mentioned as it is, as tax invoice. Every information that you will have, for example, this one will be codified. So the code to be used for tax invoice will be 388 based on a certain European standard, which is the UNTDID 1001. So you have all the detail in this slide. Tax invoice will be codified as a 388 code. Tax credit note will be codified as 381 code. So each type of document will have its own code. So you can have two options in order to comply with this regulation. First option could be to incorporate all these codes through a mapping table within your systems. A second option could be to rely on the accredited service provider to ensure that all these transformations are done before the creation of the XML invoice. But this will not be free of charge, of course. This will be with additional costs from these service providers. So it might be more advantageous for you to incorporate all these changes internally and do an internal transformation or internal development of your ERP or of your system in order to ensure that all these data are reflected within your system and not rely on an external service provider. From your side, based on the gap that you identify, you should see which could be the best option in order to comply with all these rules and so on. So this is the first example. You can have more examples in this slide, and you can have access to it once we share it with you. So each of these data that we have in the data dictionary will be codified in the XML invoice. Okay. And then our e-invoicing, how to get started. So based on our experience, we tried also to give you some structured approach regarding e-invoicing implementation. So this structured approach is based on 3 different phases. First of all, starting always with the pre-work and impact assessment that can take between 1 to 3 months. Why 1 to 3 months? It will all depend on your digital maturity, the availability of the people that you have internally, which will be part of this project. It will also depend on the size of your company. So if you are part of an SME, this will not be the same case as if you are part of a big corporation. So a transformation project in a big company will take more time than a transformation project within a small or medium company. So this is why this impact assessment can be done between 1 to 3 months, depending on all these factors. This impact assessment will be focusing on the as-is environment, your environment today. What is our situation today? What is our maturity based on what we have from this e-invoicing regulation today? What is our gap between what we have today and what we should have tomorrow? On different levels, as we said, processes for AP and AR, your data maturity regarding availability and quality of the data, your VAT management process, how you are dealing with VAT management today, how are you creating or creating your VAT returns, and which data are you using for these VAT returns. IT infrastructure is also part of this as-is environment in order to ensure that your IT infrastructure is capable of incorporating external service providers and be connected with external third-party providers. And at the end, you can also, from your side, elaborate different scenarios for the IT target model to be considered. So different scenarios. For example, if you have different billing systems, you can have a scenario where all these billing systems can be connected to the accredited service providers. Another scenario can be to connect one source of your data to this accredited service provider. So in this case, you can create or you can implement a middleware between the different billing tools that you have and the service providers. So each of these scenarios will have its own advantages and challenges based on the organization that you have and your maturity in terms of data and IT infrastructure. This is why it's very important and crucial to conduct this first level of the work, this first phase of pre-work and impact assessments. And when it's done, you can go based on the gap identified, select the right ASP in the phase 2, and connect with this ASP in order to elaborate the planning for the implementation in the future and start the implementation on good basis when you are sure that this ASP will really be tailored to your business and will give you a service covering all the needs that you have. Because as we said, as a final point, there will be different ASPs on the market. So in order to avoid any misselection of the right ASP, you should conduct this first phase in order to identify the gap. Based on this gap, you can identify the right solution based on the right commercial proposition proposed by this service provider, and you can see what and how much you want to pay in order to fulfill this gap that you have. And based on this can be a scientific approach in order to implement the invoicing and in order to avoid any bad surprises in the future. So this is from my side. I don't know, Ishan, if you want to add anything based on your experience also related to this three phases regarding e-invoicing implementation. If not, we can go directly through the questions in the time that we have.
No, I think Mark, you have covered it well. I think we have limited time, so better we can take questions and then address anything that needs to be done separately. Yep, you can. I think you can stop sharing the screen and then.
Yes. Should we go for a question round or are we waiting for something?
I think
Yeah, we
Mr.
can
Nimesh
go
was
for
wanted
question.
to ask question.
Yeah, निमिष भाई का हाथ बहुत देर से खड़ा है तो लेट्स गिव चांस निमिष भाई. It's almost half an hour. हाथ में दर्द हो गया होगा सर. Yes sir, please go ahead with your question.
Okay,
Yes.
can you hear me now?
Yes sir, we can hear you.
No, my question is, you see, basically all the ASP who wants to see the potential of making a separate avenue to make a money and all, but what sort of infrastructure they will have to have it in their place, in terms of software, hardware, and all that thing. What are the likely costs and all, and what is the potential that somebody who gets appointed as ASP may find even the customers, changing over the ASP every now and then and all. So what are the restrictions for the customers to go on changing and all? And how does it? I mean, since you all know how it works in Saudi or in France and all that thing, you can let us know. And can we expect even banks and all the private or big players or big companies and everyone to chip in, or it can be restricted to few?
So yeah, so I think that's a great question, Himeji. I think, but the thing is, see, for ASP, as we mentioned, right, the accreditation requirements have been released. There are many requirements that they need to fulfill. Like one of them is PEPAL certification. They need business continuity certificate. They need to have a legal entity set up here with minimum paid up capital. They need to have ISO 277001. Like I think those which are, and then they need to have insurance, which are also cyber insurance, and they need to have national cloud storage certification, PEPAL certification. So not everyone can be an ASP. That's one. Second is obviously all those who will meet all these requirements, and there is a rigorous testing process also that MOF is following. And once they clear those, then only they can be listed as an ASP by Ministry of Finance. So they will make sure from their side that they only list the companies who are capable enough to support clients. Now, with respect to your second question on how you can change and how frequently you can do that, again, that's not clear as of now. You can do that if you're not satisfied with one ASP, you can cancel the contract and then go with someone else. No restriction as such that has been prescribed by the tax authorities that you need to stick with someone for a particular point of time. But then again, that would be more of a commercial decision, as we say. And yes, obviously, it's a money-making opportunity for service providers who are to have technical solutions, right? But it's not that easy. So, like one of the other requirement is that they need to have minimum 2 years of experience in this field, and must have served customers in PayPal and all those. So it's a robust set of they've put enough safeguards and guardrails from their side to ensure that that the companies who are being accredited are capable enough to deliver, because it's something that MOF is giving their blessings on, right? So it's not something that they will just give blindly.
Any separate hardware, software to be installed?
So again, these validation, right? They need to have a solution, they need to have a technical solution and everything, not specific as such, but one of the key requirement is that they need to have FTA certification and all.
And
Oh,
what has
Oh,
been
sorry,
the
PEPAL
experience in
certification.
France? What has been the experience in France and Saudi and all? How they have
So
executed the
Saudi
things, you
again,
know?
see, Saudi, it's not mandatory. Saudi, you can directly integrate with government authorities also. There are service providers, so it's an option if you want to integrate or not. In France, if we speak, yes. So if you say 2 to 3 years back, and Mark can give more details, there were only 5 or 6 ASPs that were there in the market. But today, as we speak, there are more than 96 ASPs,
And
95 and 96. Yeah.
and if I can add on it, Ishan, every ASP in France will be audited every 3 years also. So in case the ASP is audited and is not responding to the requirement anymore, they will lose their accreditation. So this
But
is
even
concern. Sorry.
but even the banks and all private banks can also chip in as such, because even banks has a lot of data and I mean lot of investment being made in their hardware, software and all. So maybe some additional opportunities for them as well. So even banks can also chip in.
Every taxpayer should be connected to an accredited service provider, even in France. But the main difference in France between France and UAE, that for banks, for example, because you are mentioning the banks and the financial industry, some of the financial operations that we have exempted from VAT are exempted from e-invoicing. So these are out of the scope of e-invoicing. Where here in the UAE, we are not sure about if we will have some exemptions from e-invoicing until now or no. So this will be also published in the potentially in the ministerial decisions in the future and be clarified by Ministry of Finance in the near future.
So till the time we get any good chance, we have to be happy with tax agent.
Okay, I take it that way, right? One question before I go to Manish. One question is interesting. Abu has posted one question. Once the e-invoicing is established, is it mandatory to keep the hard copy of the invoices? Because now XML files are there, and now these accredited agents have come in and they are maintaining our records. So do we need to maintain it? What is your take on it? 5 to 7 years.
See,
The
hard
accredit
copies. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead, go ahead.
the accredited service providers will not have an obligation to maintain and to archive all this data based on the archiving obligations that we have in the UAE. This is why it's very important to maintain the archiving process that you have today. And these PDF formats will be also generated by this accredited service providers based on the XML format. So this can be maintained as of today, and you can maintain all this PDF archived as of today, but based on what will be generated from service providers, because it will be based on the XML format.
Perfect.
And
Abu,
data storage requirements
Will remain the
continues
same.
to be there, right? What is there
Exactly.
today also. And also the hard copy requirement, if you see, there is still no, today also there is no hard copy. If anyone is issuing you a PDF copy, you can maintain that as well, as long as it is in the clear format and there are guidelines around those. But as Mark said, right, the data storage requirements continue. Accredited service provider do not have any mandatory requirement to archive on your behalf. You can, as a commercial arrangement, ask them to maintain it, but that's
This
extra cost, that's
this
extra
can be
this thing, right?
optional.
Which, yeah,
This can be
optional.
optional. Exactly.
That's
All these
fine.
optional things can be agreed on a commercial basis. Yeah.
So that means gun is on your shoulder, Abu. You have to maintain the records. Manish, go ahead with your question. You have been asked to unmute yourself. Please go ahead, unmute and
See,
ask.
ASP again, before we take another question, and I think just to clarify, Jay, you perfectly summarized that the gun is on the taxpayer's shoulder only because it's their data, it's their invoice. It's not the ASP's invoice. They are just validating the invoice. Does not put any responsibility on that apart from validation. So all other responsibilities for maintaining, archiving, storage, correctness of the data. So again, another important aspect that I want to highlight here is where people have confusion that yes, now the invoice is validated, so the VAT treatment is also correct. The treatments, no, they will not be validating your VAT treatments, these ASPs. They are only validating the format of the invoices. So it's a garbage in, garbage out thing. And again, sorry for that. But then if you are doing a wrong VAT treatment, the ASP, don't expect the ASP to highlight that the VAT treatment should change, right? That's part of the advisory. So, and even the tax authority. So it's this process does not any way check your VAT treatments. So let's be clear on that also.
Perfect. Go ahead, Manish, with your question, please.
Okay. So my quick question is, what do you think? Like this system will help improving the defaults from the buyers, and if there's any default, how this system would be helpful to suppliers to take a legal route? I mean, will they use this system to take a legal route, or maybe courts will be, having easy access? I mean, what do you think about this?
So this again, as we said, right? It's your invoice, so you will have the data. I don't think AFP or anything like any third party courts or anyone will be involved in this. So see the commercial dispute settlement, it's all outside the invoicing. It's just what is happening under this framework is that instead of issuing a PDF copy of invoice, you're issuing an XML copy of invoice. And as I mentioned earlier, the only resolution or only support that you will get from invoicing is that you will have now proof as based on your ASP systems and all that the invoice was received by the taxpayer or like the customer. Apart from that, all other disputes, all other commercial, this thing needs to be handled outside e-invoicing. E-invoicing will not do that. So I think, yeah, so I think let's keep this as the invoicing framework. That has nothing to do with your legal disputes and all.
Perfect. Nikhil, please go ahead with your question. Unmute yourself and
Hey,
go
hi
ahead.
Ishan. Hi Ishan. Thank you for all this valuable insights. My question is, coming from the ASP side, although you have already answered those in different questions. One thing is like being an ASP, what you are expecting from those companies, would they be coming from IT, software development background companies, or they are from the CA practicing firm, or it's a combination of them? And the second thing is that you mentioned say 2 years of experience is required in e-invoicing. I'm not sure like how many big IT companies are already doing or already in this field, and what is the scope for the companies who are not in the invoicing but they have the large setup of the IT capabilities.
So again, I would say going forward, the future of, and I think there are a lot of sessions that our ICI team keeps doing that, and I think Jay is a big advocate for that. I don't think any CA firm can now like sustain without having technology in there, right? So it's all, I would say it's a mix. I would not even call it a mix. I would say CA firms, so they definitely need to have that, and there should not be any CA firm without any IT or any technology offering. Apart from that, to your question, see, that is a mandate, and again to Nimesh's concern that was there, right? Every second person will come in and try to be an ASP. But from Ministry of Finance side, they want to put some checks. So right now, what they're doing is they're having this 2 years check. And I'm sure what they are also wanting is that big companies only to come in and support this because this is a big change and they need credible companies to do this, right? Going forward, they might give leeways or like relax more and more requirements. But I think to start with, like how France did, right? So you would want to have big companies, big, I would not say there are not much. There are many. If we take France only as an example, France, there are now 96 ASPs. All those ASPs, I can say they are eligible tomorrow to apply here and get those solutions registered, provided they set up in the UAE. But there are a lot of companies who are already in this e-invoicing field providing services. So I'm sure and we know of a lot of companies are part of this process, right? So I'm confident that there will be a good
Add
list,
to
good
that,
number of
you
lists.
have seen tax agency. Earlier, tax agency was only Arabic. Now our Indian brothers and sisters also become tax.
Exactly.
Similarly,
One more thing also, Ishan, on this, you mentioned that next week you are expecting that the FTA would be releasing the list of the ASPs. However, I have seen some of the companies has already posted they are the approved ASP. So I'm not sure it's still we are waiting for the list of the ASP who are already approved or it is
Yeah, I
already
would
out.
not, again, you can go to the MOF website and look at the FAQs as well. They have clearly said there is no accredited service provider. All the accredited service provider will be published on the MOF website. So unless any of the companies, which to my knowledge, till now, as we are speaking, there is no company that is listed. Unless MOF is published, any company, there is no accredited service provider. There are companies in the race. Obviously, a lot of companies are in the race. I would not name like even like we and everyone is working on that, having a solution. Most of the companies have solution. But if anyone is coming to you and saying I'm an accredited service provider, ask them to give you an MOF ref link where you can go and check if they are or not,
Chan, there
and
is a
that will be
catch
fine.
there. What is happening is why these companies are coming and saying because it's FTA said it actually people certified. Since if they have said it, all the software companies which has come in UAE market who are people certified already, they are saying that yes, we will get
Exactly.
certified. So they are
See,
not saying
Pepos,
just
yeah,
FTA, they are
exactly.
saying certified.
And that's a very good point, Jay. So like PEPAL certification is different to accreditation certification by MOF. A lot of companies are PEPAL certified. Like in France, these 96 companies are PEPAL certified, but does not mean that they are ASPs in UAE. So you need a specific certification from UAE Ministry of Finance, and Ministry of Finance will release the list on their website. They've clearly put that in their FAQs as well, that they will release the list. And unless they release, there is
Yeah.
no.
Part of the UAE certification is this PEPAL certification, but it's
Correct.
not everything. It's part of it, and there is a lot of other requirements also to be met. So this is why PEPAL is not everything. It's part of it. It's very important, but it doesn't mean that they have the accreditation from MOF in the UAE.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Last question of the day. Uh, Murari, please go ahead with your question.
Yep. Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you, Ishan and Mark, for the insightful session. Really helpful. So my question is like, in future, suppose you issue an invoice to your customers and you don't get paid for that services or the goods that you have delivered. How do you handle those scenarios in e-invoicing?
Again, as I
Because
said,
technically
right?
it's not a credit note, right? So
It's anyways, and it needs to be handled the same way you are doing it today. It needs to be handled outside. Once you have issued an invoice, you need to change, you need to file a case against them. The only downside against them is in this cases, right now you should not be, and as we mentioned in the start of the presentation, right, that one of the requirement to claim input tax credit is that you need to have intention to make the payment within 6 months. So even FTA can challenge them in the future, not now, because obviously they are looking at transaction level, but e-invoicing will not track your payments. Let's be very clear. Again, e-invoicing is not tracking your VAT treatment. It's not tracking whether the supplier and customer has made payments or not. That's outside the e-invoicing framework. But yes, if you file a complaint with FTA tomorrow or you file a litigation, that's one of the proof that they did not have intention to pay and they should not have claimed input tax credit. That's much easily catchable in the e-invoicing framework. But again, all these disputes need to be handled outside e-invoicing.
okay. And is there any time limit, like by when you have to issue the invoicing, like from the
Same
date when
as per
the
the VAT law today, right? So
10
you have
days.
14 days to issue the invoice. You need to do that.
yeah.
When you are having a different date of invoice and date of supply, you need to mention the date of supply in the invoice and date of invoice also, which would be separate. So the same what the VAT law requires you to do today.
Okay, it's already 8:30. Last three hands I can see it. Keep your questions short. Thank you, Murari. We'll go with Murtaja. Please go ahead with your question. Keep it short and straight. 8:30. It's
Yeah,
already there.
yeah, sure. Just one question. Certain times we need some supporting documents with the invoices. So that also needs to be forwarded to uh, uh, ASPs and they will forward it to the client, or it has to be
So,
outside
so
the
there is no
books.
mandatory requirement. The e-invoice will have an option to put attachments also, and Mark, if you would want to
Yes.
add anything, but they will have an option to put attachment. That's optional field. If you want to put attachment, you can send it across along with the e-invoice, or if you want to send that separately to your customer through emails, how you're doing that today, you can continue doing that.
Yes, it will be possible, as Ishan said, to attach any document to your e-invoice. In this case, you will have to mention a specific invoice in your a specific information in your XML saying that this XML has an attachment. So it's a binary information. 101 means that this XML contains an attachment. 0 means it doesn't contain an attachment. It's very technical. This can be handled by the ASP. No worries about it. But what you should keep in mind that technically speaking, yes, it is possible to do it through the ASP.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And we go with Harpreet sir's question. Harpreet ji, please go ahead with your question. And you have unmuted. You have to unmute yourself, please.
Yeah. So I just want to re-clarify one more thing or one more time that entity, those who are registered outside UAE and they are raising the invoice to clients in UAE or outside UAE. So what would be the treatment?
See, anyone non-resident who is not registered for VAT or corporate tax person purpose here, they're outside the territorial jurisdiction, right? So you cannot have control over them. If, like, say, suppose you're buying goods from France or Germany from a vendor there, and they are issuing the invoice from there, they will continue to comply with their requirements of their country, not your. But if they are registered here and they are issuing any invoice, and they are registering any invoice under the UAE laws, then yes, they need to issue any invoice.
Okay, thank you very much. Sarli ji, you want to ask her your question? You have not unmuted yourself.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank you,
please go ahead.
Jay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ishan and Mark, for the excellent presentation. There is one thing, one doubt nagging me is that there will be many providers, right? Service providers. So what is the criteria which we can select a provider? Like it's for us and for our clients.
That's a very good question, and I think I always use an example when I discuss with my clients is right. Like, see, there'll be multiple ASPs in the market. Every ASP will have their own USPs. Now, consider them as doctors, right? Everyone has their own USP who can help you with that. One is gynecologist, one is physician, one is this. Now, it depends on your issues, what your problem is, and first you need to, and that is why we mentioned that recommended UAE invoicing journey, right? That phase one will help you identify what are your issues, what is the actual pain areas that you have, and then you will go out to these ASPs and say, guys, these are the 3 pain areas that I have that I need to resolve for my invoice, because every ASP will do the basic validation. Now what will happen is you might need more than basic validation, you might need some transformation. I'll take a simple example, 2 examples, like say payment date or any date needs to be in YYYMMDD format. Now your systems are not capable, assuming your systems are not capable to do it in YYYMMDD format, they can only produce in DDMMYY format. So you need someone to transform that into YYYMMDD format before getting it into an XML. So and your IT team has said, sorry, I can't do it. Get it done from the ASP itself.
Oh, okay.
So now, and second example is say payment. Now payment due date is one of the key mandatory requirements for tax invoice also, which is not a mandatory requirement today. So you might not, because a lot of B2B invoices are like pay me within 6 months of this thing or 3 months. You don't have a specific date, but under XML you can't have the words. You need to have it in YYYMMDD format. So you need to put an extra check saying that whenever I'm issuing an invoice, say the date of invoice is 1st June, just add 30 days in that and then put the payment due date as 30th June. So I'm trying to take some technical, but trying to simplify as much as I can. So you need some level of check, additional transformations to be done before an e-invoice is generated so that it doesn't get rejected. Now these ASPs, not everyone can help you out. So now you know your pain areas. Now you go to these doctors and say, guys, can you help me with this issue? And only the ones that can help you with that issue, plus meets your commercial budget, which would be one of the key requirement, your commercial constraints and everything, then you decide the right level of ASP. So that is how your ASP selection should happen.
Another example from an IT perspective, imagine, for example, the ASP is requesting a connection with your system in API. You have a legacy system, an old system, or a small company. You don't have the capacity of putting in place an API connection, and you want to share, for example, a CSV file or an Excel file with your ASP. In this case, if the ASP is not compatible with this process, for example, this ASP will not be selected. You will not select it. You will select another ASP compatible with the process that you want to put in place from a connectivity perspective. I mean, Ishan gave you an example for data. I'm giving you an example regarding IT connectivity. This is why IT, data, processes are the 3 main levels and areas where you should look during this impact assessment to see what is your as is and what is your as is situation, what is the gap, and based on this gap you can select the right ASP. And final thing, do not forget also the commercial perspective and the commercial offer that will be proposed by these service providers. So you will have service providers who will be proposing services like more expensive services than others. So you can also consider this commercial standpoint when taking the final consideration and the
So
final
basically, we will be
decision.
getting one service provider who will take care of all the needs, right? We're getting it in the format
Who should
required,
take care of all your needs. Yes.
and they should be in the also in the list of the ministry. Yeah.
Of course.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, that's it.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank
And
you,
before
Shirley.
we go ahead, let me call the guy who arranged everything. Sanjay ji, back to you. And
Yeah,
you
thank you very much, Jay. So first of all, thank you for Ishan and Mark for the wonderful session. At the time, we had 450 plus participants at the maximum we have seen in the ICA recent webinar. So thanks both of you. It was really engaging, and the way you handle the Q&A session is awesome. And I'm sure I think our members further need more clarity as we progress further. Most likely towards the end of the Q4, where the regulation will be out and we'll completely know who are our ASP. Like Shirley has slightly pointed out, how to select your ASP. That will be the next thing where the business owners and the CAs needs to figure it out. Thanks once again, and over to Jayman to close this hearing.
No, thank you very much, everyone. You can unmute yourself. You have the powers now. Please go ahead. Any feedbacks, anything you want. This session should be planned for for online, please go ahead. You can unmute and talk to us saying this is something which you should plan going ahead. Completely up. You can.
Come here.
Okay. No comments. That means everything is going good or nothing is going good.
I think we have a lot of comments in the chat section. So I think thanks a lot again, Sanjay, especially to you because we've been consistently discussing on doing this, and I think thanks Jay Amir for providing us this platform to do this. And I think it's a pleasure, like, whatever we can give back to our society and whatever we can do for them. But I think it's a big opportunity for all of us as CAs. We should grab this. We should actually get our hands dirty in this thing as much as we can. And this is something that I think we all should look forward to.
Thank you, Ishan. Thanks a lot. And one
Thank
thing,
you.
you were on a holiday. Just for my members, you were on a holiday. You are sitting in Lebanon and you joined. Thank you very much for doing this for our members.
Thank
Ishan is
you,
a
Jay.
family member. We can pull him off. But for
Yeah.
you from Lebanon on your holiday, makes sense. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
this participation. Thank you.